Good morning, everybody. I know that many of you on your test had challenges where I put the comment of show, and I asked you to use axis indicators to help in your explanation, to help show the magnitude or size of changes. And it dawned on me that I had never really necessarily discussed why that might be important. So what I'd like to do with you now is I'd like to teach you a new concept, and I'd like to do it showing you why and how using axis indicators to show magnitude of change can make life really easy for you later on. So I'm going to show you a concept called elasticity. We talked about it at the beginning of the year on the questions of the first day. The idea of, you'll remember this question, name a product or service you might purchase no matter what the cost. And you guys did a great job of naming things like gasoline or prescription drugs or something like that. So let's take a look at the idea of explaining the concepts of elastic and inelastic using a graph and demonstrating how axis indicators can really help us in our explanations. So, on this left-hand graph over here, I'm just going to draw a demand curve. And on the right-hand graph, I'm going to draw a different demand curve. And we can very clearly see that those two graphs have very different slopes, but yet we don't know yet which of those is representative of an elastic or an inelastic product. So, when we think about which is going to be which, let's do a quick definition. Okay? So, inelastic could be defined as non-responsive to changes in price. Another way you could define it is, and I'm going to use a little science notation here, the change in quantity demanded will be proportionally smaller than, less than, a change in price. Okay? And in defining elastic, we could say highly responsive to changes in price. And our notation there would be that our change in quantity demanded is going to be greater than our change in price. And so when we look at those things, we can now use the graphs to show what we are talking about here. I just noticed I covered up the elastic notation there. So let's see if we can do that a little bit better. So here we go. This is us using axis indicators in order to aid in our explanations of elastic and inelastic. Because once again, we might be able to guess which one of those is elastic and which one is inelastic, but let's just show the reader of our paper that we know it, and we know it well. So I'm going to put 2 points on this. Point A and point B. And now, from point A and point B, I am going to use my axis indicators to show that point A is a combination of one price and one quantity demanded. I will then show that point B is a combination of one price and one quantity demanded. Finish out my labeling on here. Okay, and now when we see those axis indicators, it becomes incredibly clear to us that the magnitude of those changes or the size of the changes is significantly different, okay? And what we see is that this decrease in price from PA to PB created an increase in quantity demanded from QA to QB. But very clearly, the change in price exceeds the change in quantity demanded. And so what this tells us is that consumers are unresponsive to that change in price, or relatively unresponsive, proportionally unresponsive. All right? Let's do the same thing over on the other graph. Identify price A. Associated with that one price is a single quantity demanded. Let's put a point B, because we always want to show change or alternative on each model we draw. And here's our price of B and our quantity demanded for B. And notice the specific language used there. A price will always be associated with a quantity demanded. Okay? Let's examine what happens here. Our decrease in price from PA to PB leads to an increase in quantity demanded from QA to QB, and we can very clearly note that the magnitude of change of quantity exceeds the magnitude of change of price, and those axis indicators help us do that, and therefore we can see that this graph on the right becomes the elastic graph, whereas the graph on the left is obviously the inelastic graph. So we can go ahead and label those now. And that becomes a very clear way that you can demonstrate understanding of the way that axis indicators can be used to aid in your explanations. Without those axis indicators there, all you have are 2 points on a graph that don't necessarily help you show the reader that you have understanding of what's going on. Okay? So that was a little quick thought, and also I just kind of wanted to see if I could record one of these and how stupid it would look. I'm pretty sure it's pretty stupid, but let's move on. All right. Thanks, everybody.